Now, abattis, full-fledged, strong, and proper form, is usually made of uprooted trees in which you tangle the roots together, facing out towards the enemy, and sharpen them. Kind of an early barbed wire. But a simple abattis could just be branches intertangled together, something to slow down the enemy as they attempt to cross over, and give you a bit of mild protection from fire. Typically in these positions, your first row of men, they would be known as a picket. A picket is your human tripwire. They would be out in front, and as soon as they spot the enemy, they would fire, alerting the force where the enemy is approaching from. It was important, though, not to respond immediately to your picket, because if your enemy was launching multiple attacks and you sent everybody to the first picket, you might get caught from the flanks and the sides being attacked by the enemy, with nobody left to send. Now we hear by the sound of the whistle the Americans are forming up. You usually wait with your pickets to see what the strength of the enemy is, and as they see more British and Canadian forces approaching, the Americans recognize this was probably going to be the major assault. So with the call of the whistle, the men are brought to arms, they organize themselves and set up in their defensive lines, which have been pre-planned. In some encampments, the men would actually sleep holding their arms loaded, just in case the enemy were to attack, so they could spring up immediately to the defense of their position. And now the king of the battlefield rears its head, the artillery. On a battlefield, artillery was named the king for a good reason. It was big, it was powerful, and it was deadly. Even a light gun, like the two we have that are knocking away in the distance, are extremely deadly. The Army actually did testing and found that at a range of 400 yards, one of those light guns could cleave through up to 14 human beings. Now you see excellent examples of volley fire. Volleys were important for a battlefield 200 years ago because of the weapons they're using. Almost all the troops you see out on the field are armed with flintlock smoothbore muskets. That means a lot of things, but first off, being a flintlock, it means it doesn't work all the time. You may have noticed sometimes when they pull the trigger, nothing happens. It goes click instead of going bang. That's because the entire firing mechanism is exposed. Wind, rain, snow, that's all going to affect its ability to fire. That just shooting it makes it harder to fire the next time, as black powder leaves a filthy residue behind in the pan and on the lock. So that's your first problem. The second is accuracy. These smooth bores can hit your opponent at about 60 to 80 yards away. Past that, good luck. At 100 yards, your margin of error is 9 feet in any direction. So the idea was, by firing a volley, enough muskets will go off, that enough lead will go across the battlefield, you'll hit something. But this produces another problem, which you're all seeing right now, that's smoke. You can see how much smoke this skirmish is producing. Imagine a full-fledged battle with thousands of muskets and dozens of cannon. You barely even see anything. And say oftentimes the first time you could see and identify your opponent is the distance the American front rank is facing the British ranks right now. At the Battle of Lundy's Lane, they were 15 feet apart and could not see one another in the smoke. Now this answers a question that's very popular to ask the reenactors. Why on earth do you wear bright red? Well, you only want half the army to shoot at you out there. By wearing a bright distinctive uniform, half the men on the battlefield know when they see you coming out of the smoke, don't shoot, I'm on your side. So we have red team, blue team. If you thought you were smart and you showed up wearing brown or black or green, you're going to get shot at by everybody. At Lundy's Lane, there was a Canadian regiment, the Glengarry Light Infantry, and they lost more men to the British and to the Canadians than they did to the Americans, simply because they could not be identified in the smoke. In that same battle, an American brigade wearing gray uniforms was fired upon by both sides for 20 minutes. Camouflage is a great idea, but 200 years ago, it could make you, as they would put it, a landowner. Now, I am sure there's a few locals in the crowd, but there's a local unit out on the battlefield as well. In the British line, you'll notice that there's a company of soldiers in green and red coats with blue trousers. These are men of the 2nd York Militia. Militia was part of citizenship. If you're a man between 16 and 60, you're in the militia. During peacetime, militia training was pretty lackluster. It usually meant showing up to a fort or a military depot. You could load and fire a musket and be rewarded with free beer for the rest of the day. But when war breaks out, you can be drafted for anywhere from 30 days to 1 year of service, in which time you will be treated like a regular soldier. The only thing you don't have to worry about is being flogged like a regular soldier. Militia cannot be flogged. Now the uniform they're wearing, many of the militia didn't get a uniform, but being in a wealthier area, you often have the opportunity to purchase uniforms. These uniforms were actually sent from Quebec, from stores of green and blue cloth they had available, as red cloth was in short supply. I think we give it. Don't worry, you go definitely. With its droning sound, could carry out orders to the men. They even use bugles, and a bugle can be heard up to 3 miles away. A good bugle caller could actually communicate back and forth with another bugle caller, and they could communicate anything. They could tell you how many of the enemy were coming, what troops were coming, whatever you needed. Now I gotta ask, I mentioned about the locals and I didn't see too much of a response. We do have a good number of Canadians in the crowd, right? Alright. Well, good news, we have another Canadian regiment out on the field. It's these guys fighting for the Americans. Oh, yeah, now everybody's listening. The Canadian Volunteers was actually a regiment raised in the Niagara in 1813 from disaffected Canadians. Their 3 commanding officers were all members of the Ontario legislature, well, the Upper Canadian legislature, when they took their commission in the American Army. So if you think you got a problem with Queen's Park now, it was nothing 200 years ago. In fact, their commander, Joseph Wilcox, even burnt down his own constituency in December of 1813, the village of Newark, present-day Niagara-on-the-Lake. But don't worry, Joseph Wilcox got what he deserved. He got the perfect ending for a Canadian traitor. He was killed at the Siege of Fort Erie in 1814 and buried in Buffalo.
Are you security or a traitor? little bit of comedy, a little bit of comedy.
Go Thompsons! Give them help! Come on, boys!
Make ready! Set! Fire!
One retire, sir. Level up! In your file.
Go that way. My files march! Up front farm! Prime and load!
No.
Up, company! Right about! Halt front form!
Wrong way. Wrong way.
Green dudes. Look at them green boys.
Shoulder arms. Prime and load.
Very well. Spring up, ready back, face, quick, march.
Shoulder arms. Right about face. March.
Right here.
So we can see the British and Canadians getting pushed back into the corner. It was not uncommon if you were defending positions, the enemy looked to be wavering, to immediately counterattack and try to push them away.
Pushing them in.
It's a common tactic for retreat to lure an enemy out. But a confident general can find success to attack the enemy who's running away. For example, if you ever travel down London Way, Longwood's battlefield is just outside of the town. They do a reenactment out there every day. They tell that exact story. The Canadian and British forces would attack a fortified American position, took heavy losses, and were chased back by the Americans.
It's okay. It's fine. It's like me to make it better. Want me to make you better? It's okay. I'm gonna make you better. I'm gonna make you better. It's okay. Okay. Better.
Now, as the battle is winding down, a few last shots may be commented, but it is a tradition amongst the reenactors. As students of history, as lovers of history, we understand that the uniforms that we wear and the people that we represent are real people who walk the grounds we often walk on as well. And we recognize this, and we oftentimes like to pay homage to them. So one of the ways that we like to pay homage is actually with the playing of a lament. So as the battle winds down, the fifes and drums will be emerging for playing of a lament. During the playing of the lament, we ask that you please observe silence and remove your hats during the playing. We just recognize the ground we walk on, that's blood spilled on it, and we respect the game before us. They're greeting each other, exchanging pleasantries, but they're discussing the treatment of the field in terms of how the wounded will be treated, how the prisoners will be treated, and how the dead will be taken care of. These were serious matters. Men could sometimes be paroled if the situation is correct, Paroling is where a man is allowed to escape captivity, so to say. They go home. They just have to promise that they will not fight in the war until formally exchanged by some sort of treaty. As a side note, for proud citizens of modern York, all of Toronto, when York was taken, it was reported that some Canadian militiamen came from as far as 60 miles out of the city to meet with the Americans and get a parole so they wouldn't have to serve in the militia anymore.
This is the conclusion of the battle, but it's not the conclusion of the game. Yeah, the Americans are going to invest the town. So if you proceed down to the end of the city, the British flag is flying, the Americans are going to parade in, and they're going to change over the flag to the American color. On a particular note, keep an eye. It is the only American color that has more than 13 stripes. 15 stripes, 15 stars was the American flag at the time. They had a stripe and a star. Except the next time they were set up, the one states, then with that one flag. But my name is Gerald Lernston. My pleasure to talk to you. If you have any further questions, comments, remarks, there are loads of people here who love to hear from you.